This is Stephen Vigent, Chair of the Shrewsbury Board of Health. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipate... Let me start over. As a preliminary matter, this is Stephen Vigent, Chair of the Shrewsbury Board of Health. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dr. George Abraham?
Present.
Jenny Fishman?
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Administrative Assistant Kerry Stockwell?
Present.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Jeff Howland?
Present.
Don Musio?
Present.
Phil Legere?
Present.
Okay, good morning. This open meeting of the Shrewsbury Board of Health is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public meetings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Shrewsbury Board of Health is convening by telephone conference, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each board member or staff member who has the lead role for this particular item or guest speaker associated with this item on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members first and then to staff members, inviting each by name to provide any comment or questions. I will then call upon the members to offer a motion and then for a second. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For others in attendance that are expected to present, please hold until your name is called to present. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. After your presentation, members of the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So before we get into the actual agenda, I have an important notice from the state. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Shrewsbury Board of Health will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. All meetings and hearings listed in the agenda will also be done through remote participation. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.shrewsburyma.gov/coronavirus. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by visiting www.shrewsburymediaconnection.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Please mute your device until the chair of the Board of Health addresses your agenda item. Okay, so at this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the review and approval of minutes from the February 28th, 2020 Board of Health meeting. Have the members, Dr. George Abraham and Jenny Fishman, reviewed the meeting minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Dr. Abraham, and may I also address agenda item number 4 while we approve the minutes, since that is germane to that particular action?
Sure, that's fine.
So, Mr. Chair, at the last meeting, there was the public member, Mr. Moss, had expressed some concerns that there was that I had specifically refuted his testimony that the funding of a study that he had quoted was funded by the U.S. government, and I would like to stand corrected and let the record reflect that the study was partially funded by the U.S. government and partly by the Canadian government. So the public member, the citizen, had requested that this be noted on the record, and so may I request, Mr. Chair, that that be reflected on the record, and I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 28, 2020 meeting.
Do I have a second, Jenny?
Yes, I second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. First, Dr. George Abraham.
Abraham, aye.
Jenny Fishman.
Aye.
Stephen Vigent, aye. The Board of Health meeting minutes are approved. And just let me say, since Dr. Abraham addressed item 4, I just wanted to mention that item on the agenda, which was review and discuss factual correction from the Board of Health meeting held on February 28, 2020. The JAMA pediatric study on fluoride's link to reduced IQ in children was funded by the U.S. government, requested by Brian Moss, 16 Ruthven Circle. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to review and act on a request for approval of the construction plans for the Section 7 baseliner at the Shrewsbury Landfill, which is the next increment of baseliner construction of the Phase 5 development, requested by Don Musial, PE, VP, Ash Monofils. So whether either Jeff Howland or Don Musial, can you address this item?
Sure. This is Don Musial here, and thank you everybody for having us on the agenda today. I know it's a difficult time for everybody and inconvenient, and everybody has a lot on their minds these days. So I appreciate it. Wheelabrator appreciates it. I've been in touch over the past week with the town manager as well as Jeff Howland, just letting them know that Wheelabrator as an essential service for public health with waste collection, disposal management. We have, over the last month now, put our protections in place for our employees, for people that come to our sites regarding the COVID crisis that's ongoing, and just assuring that we'll continue to operate both the Shrewsbury site, but the more importantly is the Millbury Waste Energy Facility. So a little difficult these days getting some of the personal protective equipment that the employees need. But we are on one of the priority lists for receiving things like latex gloves and masks and things like that. So I just want to put that there. But the reason we're here today is to talk about the Shrewsbury landfill and our next increment of baseliner construction. This piece is the Section 7 baseliner, which is actually the final section or final increment of baseliner for the Phase 5 development, which was approved by the Board of Health and by DEP back in 2009. And originally constructed the first segment of that in 2010. Right now at the site, we're constructing the final piece of Section 6. That work was ongoing in 2019 and wrapped up over the winter here of 2020. Our anticipation is to construct Section 7, which is the final increment here, in 2020 so that we can have it in service for 2021 to allow uninterrupted services at the site. Back in February 19th of 2020, we submitted to the Board of Health our ATC application. That's the authorization to construct that is submitted to the Mass DEP for any construction of any baseline or increment at any landfill. And our submittal to the Board of Health is required by our site assignment issued by the Board of Health, as well as our host agreement. And that submittal is for any construction plans regarding the landfill. As we mentioned, Section 7 is part of the previously approved Phase 5 expansion area. And the plans that were submitted in February of this year, 2020, are reflective of changes that we had discussed with the board here back in May of last year. So May of 2019, we envisioned some changes to that baseline or cell area-wise. So we had increased the footprint from the previously approved 7.8 acres to 9.3 acres, which increased the volume of that cell by about 300,000 cubic yards. So bringing it from 750,000 cubic yards to just over 1 million cubic yards for that cell. That 300,000 cubic yards equals about 1 year of site life. So with Section 7, the site life for the whole facility brings us out almost another 10 years of remaining site life with Section 7. Part of this process, so we met with the board back in May of last year, and here we are, it's March, almost a year later. But we, in the interim, after our May meeting with the board of last year, we met with the DEP on a couple of occasions to discuss the changes that we're envisioning for the area and for the capacity. We submitted in September of 2019 a request for advisory opinion to the MEPA office to have them review it to determine what path we needed to go through on the MEPA process, which takes place before any DEP process can start. So MEPA came back in that fall and required us to submit an environmental notification form, which we did and was published in December of 2019. We went through the public meeting, public site visit in December timeframe, and MEPA issued their certificate of completion in January of 2020, which then allowed us to submit the ATC application to DEP, which concurrently went to the Board of Health as well too in February of this year. Section 7, its design is much like every other baseliner that's on site. It's double lined with high density polyethylene liner systems. Full leachate collection, so any water, wastewater that contacts the ash is collected as wastewater, which we discharge to the town of Shrewsbury sewer system. There's a new pump station within the Section 7 baseliner area that we'll be constructing to help collect that water. And again, it ties back into all the existing systems that are already on site. This allows the site to continue operating for another 10 years. That's revenue to the community. It's assured disposal of ash for the Millbury Waste Energy Facility, and allows us to keep running smoothly. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to any of the members. It's tough here with the protocol, so I'll turn it over to you guys to let me know how you'd like to go.
Okay, this is Steve Bishop. Thank you very much, Don. First, I will open it up to any questions or comments from the board. Dr. Abraham, do you have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, no, just a reassurance from the Board of Health standpoint that with all these processes and the appropriate steps that you've taken, there is no concern of to the immediate citizens around the area of potential contamination of their water supply, et cetera.
Yes, so this is Don here. Correct. So there's the baseline systems are double-line systems, so that there's a secondary collection below the primary collection to assure us that the primary collection is operating as designed. There's also groundwater monitoring wells around the entire facility that monitor the ground. We sample the groundwater twice per year, upgrading and downgrading, to assure that there's no trends of any parameters that the DEP requires us to test. And if there are trends, for whatever that cause may be, we can track those and trace those and determine a potential source. At this time on site, there are no issues on site with groundwater. We're not in a groundwater supply area. Most of the soils underneath the site are clay in nature and wouldn't be suitable for drinking water anyways.
Great. Thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Abraham. Jenny Fishman, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not. I think we just covered any questions I actually had in the situation. So I'm good.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is Steve Vigent. I assume that there is some kind of monitoring that's taking place as part of this process, some groundwater monitoring?
Yes. So there is the groundwater monitoring that's currently being conducted now, and again, that's semi-annual. During construction of the baseliner cells, we have independent third-party engineers that oversee all of the construction activities. All of the seaming work and welding work that's performed is all quality assurance tested. What we also do is once the baseliner is constructed, before any waste materials actually go into that the new lined area, we flood that lined area with clean water, and we monitor that clean water, and we monitor underneath in that secondary collection system of the baseliner to assure that there's no leakage from the primary into the secondary. Then we remove all of that water, and then we can start actually putting waste materials into the new cell.
Okay, thank you. And also, what do you anticipate as the timing of the Mass DEP approval of the application?
Boy, there's a lot going on at Mass DEP over the past month here. We're hopeful for Mass DEP to have an approval for us within the next 2 months. It's the end of March now. Ideally, we'd like to be on the ground constructing in May. With all of the worldly activities happening right now and people not being in the office, I'm thinking probably a June timeframe to allow us to start construction. There's some components of construction that DEP could approve early for us to allow us to start some of the earthwork that needs to be done. And we're likely going to be requesting an earlier approval for some components so that we can get started here while the weather's good.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I would like to ask for a motion from someone in regard to approve the construction plans for the Section 7 baseliner at the Shrewsbury landfill, increasing the footprint by 1.5 acres.
Abraham makes the motion.
Jen Fishman, I second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Dr. Abraham?
Aye.
Jenny Fishman?
Aye.
Steve Vigent? Aye. Therefore, the board approves the request from Wheelabrator, and so you are all set.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Stay safe.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we've already handled item 4, so therefore item 5 is review and act on the report from the Central Massachusetts Regional Public Health Alliance.
Good morning.
Phil Legier going to address this?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so as you know, we're all involved in the response right now. So for the immediate future, we've suspended routine inspections. We're following up on complaints via telephone and email as much as possible. Carrie will tell you we're getting a lot of calls on what's essential and what's non-essential services. We've been able to answer most of those and then channeled the other ones that are classified non-essential to apply through the state. That's keeping Carrie very busy. Today is Ivan's last day. He resigned on his own, so we're sad to see him go, but that's our reality. So we're not going to have an immediate replacement at the moment, but we're working remotely as much as we can, and keeping up with what comes through the door. So Carrie's keeping up with, routine type permitting that's coming in. The pool season's coming up. That's somewhat suspended right now, but we're trying to also keep as much of routine matters that we can deal with ongoing. There is some funding that has been released to help with the COVID-19 response that has come through the city of Worcester that will then be dispersed through the individual towns. So that's one of our priorities right now, to get that money to the individual towns and what it can be used on. So working on that. And we're we're rotating staff, I'm working remotely as much as I can. I'm in the risk group, and my wife is in the risk group. She depends on me, so we're trying to keep up with that. I don't know if Carrie has a quick add into what's coming in through the office. She worked remotely last week. That worked fine. We were able to deal with any calls and emails that came in. So that seemed to be working. She's alternating a week in, a week remotely.
That's correct.
So that's where we're at. Been attending remote Board of Health meetings, so it's a little bit of different media, but I still think we can get business done as you just did. So we're still working it. Anyone have questions? That's kind of a general statement.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. This is Steve Vigent. Dr. Abraham, do you have any comments or questions for Phil?
No questions, Mr. Chair, but I would just like us as a board, for the record, to reflect that we have many healthcare workers from the town of Shrewsbury who are working in the hospitals in Worcester and surrounding areas, and I would like to state on the record the Board of Health's appreciation to all those who put their own health and well-being and their families' well-being on the line while they work tirelessly as we get through this crisis. Having been on the front lines for the last 3.5 weeks, every day, 15 to 16 hours a day, I can only appreciate how much people have stepped up to the plate and how much the community has stepped up to the plate to help us with dwindling supplies, etc., which has been a huge lifesaver. So I think as a board, we should record how wonderful our citizens have been and response to a crisis, and to everyone who's really worked hard to make this better for all the citizens of our Commonwealth.
This is Jen Fishman. I'll second that. Pretty amazing.
And this is Steve Vigent. Yes, I definitely echo your comments, Dr. Abraham, and I also want to thank you personally for I imagine, an extraordinary effort you're putting into as the medical director of St. Vincent, that you must be overwhelmed right now. But thank you so much for your sacrifice and service.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your kind words. It's an honor to work shoulder to shoulder with so many other exemplary citizens of the Commonwealth, so it's indeed a privilege.
Again, this is Steve Vigent. Phil, I noticed on the list of inspections that there was a hazmat incident, an emergency. Is that something you can comment on, or?
I was going to ask Carrie, was that the supermarket one? Or was that it was two different events. I'm just trying to remember which. Go ahead.
It wasn't the supermarket. It was a different company, and the department didn't have to go in. It was brought to our attention from the fire department.
And they asked for a consult, so Julie had responded to that.
Okay, so before we move, oh, Kerry, did you have something else?
Oh, I was just going to say, it was chemical related.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I just wanted to, thank Kerry, our administrative assistant. She's been working more than overtime in regard to this incident, and she's handling many unusual calls and requests, and is just an overwhelming task right now. And just thank you, Kerry, for staying on top of this and keeping the town informed of what's going on and passing on information that is being forwarded to the board and the alliance from the state.
Here, here.
Yes, thank you, Carrie.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
I'm sure it's been overwhelming.
I'm
And
very
I'll-
popular.
And I also wanted to thank the alliance. Karen Clark, the director, Phil, Julie, and everyone who's involved in this for the extraordinary times that we're in. And thank you for all the efforts you've been putting in, and also in a large way to Dr. Hirsch, who is kind of like the face of this right now for the alliance. Seeing him on the basically the daily briefings from Worcester, he's doing a fantastic job too. So thank you to all of you at the alliance.
One day at a time. It's all we can do.
Okay. At this point, the next item on the agenda is to review the meeting schedule. Does April 24th look reasonable?
Steve, this is Carrie. I'll actually be out on vacation that week.
Okay. Is May 1st a possibility?
I think that looks fine to me. I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody's going to be going anywhere between now and then, so.
That's probably true.
So I'll tentatively block it. I can't commit because it's not a day that we usually plan for this. So and as always, depending on how things work out, we have crisis command calls which happen all the time. So
Sure.
That's tentative. But for now, I can tentatively schedule it. Yes.
Okay, so let's make a tentative meeting date of May 1st, 2020 for the next Board of Health meeting.
So noted.
Okay, so unless there are any other comments or questions, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn. Abraham moves it.
Jen Fishman, I second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Dr. Abraham?
Aye.
Jenny Fishman?
Aye.
Steve Vigent, aye. So the meeting is now adjourned, and thank you all so much for participating remotely in this meeting today.